Hey guys, welcome back to the This Is Soul Skate Shop YouTube channel. In this video, I'll tell you everything about the new frame hype, high-low setups. We are, of course, in the This Is Soul Skate Shop in Amsterdam. We have a store in Berlin as well. So the best thing to do if you want to buy some skates is come to one of our shops and put everything on. And of course, we have all the frame options that you want here in our store. So you can try them on, put them on your skates as well and try them in the store. If you want to learn online, we have a big YouTube channel which you're watching now, but we also have all this information on our website, thisissoul.com. We try to have a really good integration with the YouTube knowledge and our website, This Is Soul, where you can find all the products. So all the products have all the information that you want about them as well. There's a lot of aspects about frames. There's a lot of things to know about frames, frame length, frame mountings, frame material, plastic frames, metal frames. It all matters a lot. There's so many differences, and about all these topics we all have different videos already on our channel. So go check them out. This video is all about high-low setups, but what is a high-low setup? What makes it so special? Well, a high-low setup is where you use different wheel diameters in one frame. It can be done in a couple of different ways. Classically, it's done by either putting two smaller wheels in the front and two bigger wheels in the back, or you can do it by putting two bigger wheels on the outside and two smaller wheels in the middle. Later in this video, I'll explain you one more way to do it. First, of course, I like to start with a little bit of history. And the history of our sport almost always starts with this skate here. Because inline skating kind of emerged as soon as this skate came on the market. This is a Roaches skate, but Roaches used to make the skates for the rollerblade brand. And the first rollerblade TRS Lightning with a buckle came on the market in the late 80s. I think it was 87. So that's when inline skating really emerged as a sport. That's when everything started. And already those first skates had a rockering system in their frames, meaning you can put the wheels up and down. So if I take out this wheel right now, I'll show you real quick. Boom. Then there's a little spacer here, and this spacer is asymmetrical, so I can put it back like this, or I can put it back like that. And by doing that, if I would change the position, I can put the wheel more up and put the wheel more down. And with that, I can create a rocker. So if the outer wheels are higher, the frame kind of like is a little bit unstable or more maneuverable. So it's also more playful. It's not for beginners. If you have a short wheelbase, if you have a long wheelbase, then you are stable enough. So a rocker actually makes it that it's really nice because you have the stability of the length and you're still maneuverable. So there's the option to play around at least a little bit with the rockering, but you can also use this rockering to put in a bigger wheel. So the center two wheels are low to the ground, and then the axle of the outer wheel is higher. So that means that you can put in like instead of an 80 millimeter wheel, you can put in an 84. Or maybe in this frame size, it would be 72 in the middle and 76 on the outside, for example. And that is a high-low setup. In the history of skating, if we look back, high-low setups have always been possible. They haven't been done much. And I think probably the first people to really utilize this possibility to do that is hockey skaters. Because if you put bigger wheels on the outside and smaller wheels on the inside, it gives you more of an aggressive stance. And I don't mean aggressive as in aggressive inline skating, meaning grinding on skates, but I mean aggressive in like a more forward lean, where you're more like ready to attack and ready to like charge and make fast strides and accelerate. So if you have any skate and you just put in two smaller wheels in the front, it will give you a forward lean. It also will make it more maneuverable because you'll have a slight rocker because the outer wheel is a little bit higher from the ground then. So that's what hockey players started to do. I don't know when. I'm not a big history source for hockey inline skating, but I do think that they were probably the first ones to play around with that. And then there also emerged a frame brand out of this, and this frame brand is called high-low. So that's also the name of this video. So also don't know here if it's called high-low because of the frame brand or the frame brand is called high-low because of the name of the frame setups. And the high-low brand, they have a flat setup, so meaning all wheels touch the ground, but the front two wheels are smaller. And this is nice because if you look at a boot, then the boot is always lower in the front and higher in the back. So you have this room here. So why not utilize this room with bigger wheels? If you can put the wheel in, then put the wheel in, I always say. So if it fits, then put it in. The bigger the better. Well, it's not really true. There's a limit to the bigger is better because you don't want to have like 110 millimeter wheels. Anybody thinking about 3 times 110? Watch our 3 wheels versus 4 wheels video and you'll learn why 4 wheels are better. So that's the history of the high-low frame there. And that's kind of like the way where the front wheels are smaller than the back wheels. But there's one other way, and that's when the outer wheels are bigger. And of course, you could always do that with these old skates. But the first frame that I know that really came out as a high-low frame was the ground control frame. And it was called the ground control high-low frame, I think. It first came out on a Shima Pro skate, I believe. It must be somewhere probably mid-zeros, late zeros, probably more, something like that. Don't know the exact year. Do remember people skating these actually back in the day. The idea for this is that you want to have like a big groove in the middle for grinding. So you want to have the middle wheels to the outside as far as possible. But to do that, there's this mounting screw, and you cannot just put this wheel to the outside unless you want it to rub to the mounting screw. So if you want to avoid that, you make this wheel a little bit smaller so that it doesn't hit the mounting screw, because it sits there right in the middle. You cannot see it in this frame here. Well, you can see it here. If I have a frame like this, you can see here this hole and this hole. That's where the mounting sits. And yeah, to avoid it rubbing, you can make the wheel smaller. And all 4 wheels touch the ground, but this one is just super, super small. And yeah, this is the first high-low frame. It's still probably one of the best frames ever made for aggressive inline skating. So if you can find one of these frames, you're probably not going to use it. Because the problem with this frame was that there are no wheels for it. So they made like a special wheel size. It's a 47 millimeter wheel on the inside and a 56 millimeter wheel on the outside. And they had this wheel specially made for this frame, but they didn't really release it as an aftermarket wheel, or maybe it was just not available. I don't know, I didn't skate this wheel back then, so I haven't searched for that wheel 20 years ago, so I haven't really tried it then. But I've heard this from people that they could not buy it. Once these wheels broke, you couldn't buy it. And the wheels from back in the zeros were really, really bad still, so they probably break like within, I don't know, a couple of sessions maybe, or maybe if you're lucky they last a couple of months, but you need to replace your wheels soon. And if you cannot replace them, then you need to skate another frame. So that's where this frame kind of like missed. I actually put in some really old school grind wheels in this one. So this is not like a normal urethane wheel where it's made for rolling, but this is just like a really old school grind wheel. Back in the 90s, the grind wheels were a lot bigger. So I made it work with this somehow. I created a setup with it. But yeah, this is nearly impossible to find wheels that fit in this frame. The modern kind of like reincarnation of this frame is the wish frame, and more about that later. First, I want to show you a little drawing, and because I want you to make sense of this concept. So let's imagine the ground is here, and that this is your foot. Wow, it's a really nice foot from the little toenail here. So this is your foot, and then of course the skate sits around it. And the skate has these mounting plates here, and there's a screw here. So you want to have the wheels, normally the wheels are kind of like in these spots, and they're like this. And then the frame kind of like connects all that. This one needs to be a little bit bigger, like that. But you see in this picture that there's still room between here and between your foot. So you want to utilize all this room between your wheels and your foot. And for these wheels, they really cannot grow that much because the screw sits here. So there's no possibility for these wheels to grow because, yeah, otherwise they rub there and they rub there. But over here, there's still a lot of room. So if you just move the axle to this position here, a little bit more to the outside and a little bit higher, you can, with still kind of like the same dimensions, the foot is still in the same place, you can really like make a lot bigger wheel here. Wow, this is really big, really nice. Like that and like this. So that's kind of like the modern high-low setup, which is popular right now. And I think this is great. I think everybody with a UFS frame or anybody with a 165 millimeter mount frame or boot, of course, would be better off with a high-low frame. The only downside that I can think of is that, of course, because your wheel is then bigger, your frame will also be a little bit bigger, and then maybe crossovers are a little bit harder because the total length is a little bit longer. But you'll manage those crossovers. That's fine. Like if that's the only thing that's worth having just a smoother roll, yeah, that's the most important thing. You'll go faster and smoother. So the bad surfaces are equalized a little bit better because of the wheels is a little bit bigger. So that's why it's the new frame hype, where before like all wheels were always the same size, and we've been going a lot towards maybe longer frames with a little bit of a rocker. It's called the wizard style or flow skating. But now the latest trend is the high-low frames. Let me show you some examples. I'll start with aggressive skating. So if you don't like aggressive skating, you can skip this part. There is here, for example, the slimline frame. This is a really old one. And the slimline frame has this option. The slimline frame is also really limited by these mounting positions of the UFS mount. So you can put in maybe, I don't know the wheel size out of my head, but probably like 65, oh no, but probably like 56 or 58 millimeter in the middle. But then on the outside, you can rocker it the same way that you can rocker the FCO. You can put it on the frame space, you can put it up or down, and then you can put in a bigger wheel on the outside. So this is a really like kind of like a classical frame because it's very similar to the Roadster's FCO. Then there's a couple of new frames on the market. This is the Kaiser Shift Unlimited. And here you see as well, it has these same slots. And in these slots sit in frame spacers, of course. I don't have them in the box here. But you can put the position of the frame spacers in two different ways. And then with that, you can create your own high-low setup. And again, also, if you want to have the shift frame, it's always better to put in the high-low setup, I think, than to put them all at the same height. So it's definitely worth investigating. Then there's a couple of other frames on the market. Basically, all frames that have either high-low in the name of the frame, or if you can see that they have the frame spacers in it, which you can change, then you can make your own frame high-low setup with that. The Sola made one. Sola is a metal frame for aggressive skating, and that's the only metal high-low setup frame that I know of. It's been discontinued now. I don't really know why, because I really believe that frame is probably better than the standard classical Sola frames. Maybe you don't agree. Drop it in the comments, by the way, if you don't agree that high-low frames are better to start with. I do think so, but maybe if you make a really good argument, you can tell me why you don't think so. And then, of course, the best one, in my opinion, is the Wish frame right now. Wish frames are really confusing because you write it O-Y-S-I. I don't know how that spells wish. There's so many ways to spell wish, but that's not one of them, I think. But yeah, that's how you pronounce it and that's how you write it. Cool thing about the Wish frames, where it differentiates a little bit from the high-low frames from ground control, is that with the Wish frames, the outer wheels even utilize this space here, which I drew on, I drew it on purpose so that it almost touches the foot here. It actually goes inside the shell on the front. You see that? Because you can make this little opening in the shell, and I actually did this to install the Wish frames. You need to do this yourself as well. You need to grab a Dremel or a grinder, or you can use maybe sandpaper, but it will take you a long time. So use something that grinds away plastic efficiently and make a little hole for the outer wheel here, so that you utilize the space. And with this, you can also see it the way it's sunken in so much into my boot. The wheel really almost touches my toe, and that's the best way. That's how you want it. You wanna have a low ride height. You want to ride as low to the ground as possible, but within that height that you have, you want to have the biggest wheel. Yeah. That was it for aggressive skating. Now we're gonna move to freestyle skating. I think this is the frame that started it all. There's other frames, I'll tell you a little bit about that as well. But this one really set everybody's mind really clear on why the high-low setups are the new hype. This is the Wizard Advanced frame. It's nice and sealed. And it also shows in the rocker, it's like you see that this is not a straight line, so it's nice and curved. The way that the wheels sit on the ground is actually less curved than that the frame is, because the outer wheels are a lot bigger, so they sit lower. This is the 84 millimeter in the middle, and then there's 100 millimeter on the outside. Again, because that room is there on the outside, why not utilize it? There's a big discussion between the advanced frames and the PR frames, because some people skate like basically there you have like the PR 80, but you also have an advanced 80. And these are almost the same frames, except the only difference is that the outer wheels are either 80 millimeter or 100 millimeter. They're completely the same brand, same everything, and that's the only difference. So the people who know best what is the difference between these two setups are the people who tried them both, of course. And what I hear from them is that the PR 80 are more maneuverable, and that's also because the distance between these holes also is a big factor in the maneuverability, and because this distance is more, it makes it less maneuverable. Maybe also the rocker is different on the PRs. When this frame came out, a lot of people realized like, that's possible. A lot of the other frame manufacturers started pumping out frames similar to it. Some of these frames that are similar are, for example, this is the Decode frame from Icon. You see it's also a really long frame where you can put bigger wheels on the outside. It's a five-wheel frame, but you can also put 4 wheels in it. You see that it has lots of holes, so there's lots of different possibilities of frame setups. Some are even rockerable, so you can put the axle a little bit up and down to play with the rockering. So this is, for example, one of the frames that is inspired by the Wizard frame. Here's an endless arc. It's also very comparable. Nice in this package, nice packaging. See that? It's also a 5-wheel frame, and it has 84 millimeters on the outside, and I think 76 on the inside. Very cool. This is a little bit shorter, of course. It's something like a little bit of a smaller wheelbase. We have all these frames from all brands and all in all different frame mounts. So there's a UFS 165 and a Trinity option. For most of these, I'll save this one for last, because that's kind of like the third way to do a high-low setup. So it's really interesting. And I really like this frame. And this might have been in the loop already before the Wizard Advanced frames were on the market, but I'm not sure. Well, the owner of this brand and the owner of this brand, of course, are they know each other, so they maybe they talk a little bit, because it came out a little bit at the same time, and I'm of course also talking to these people, and sometimes they share a little bit secrets. So I got scooped this frame, I think it was 2019 or 2020 already. I knew that this was coming, so I don't know which was sooner. Cool thing about this frame is that it's not a super long frame, and it's just like a normal freestyle frame where like most people skate like 4x80 or 4x90, but then you're always left with these big gaps above your wheels. Here's a classical FR skate. You see that I can put my pinky underneath here, and I can put my finger underneath here. And this room here is totally unutilized, so you can just put a bigger wheel there. And this is the same frame, but it has 90 on the outside and has 84 in the middle. And there's a bunch of different editions for these. I think my favorite is 90 in the middle and 100 on the outside. I think probably as like a blank statement, if I would pick one frame that would be the best frame for any 165mm boot, it would probably be that frame, 90 in the middle, 100 on the outside. And then there's two different editions. One is flat and the other is rockered, so you can play with that. So they didn't give the option in the axles, moving the axles up and down, because also that's also a little bit of a vulnerability. The axles and those, maybe you fix it with frame spacers like in the FCOs, but even those rockable axles, they sometimes, not always, sometimes they work perfectly fine and it's really great. But sometimes they tick a little bit and they're just a little bit loose, okay? So there's an advantage to not having them and just having a solid frame. So that's why FR choose to have like a rocker frame and a flat frame separate, so that you can just choose and then you have the best frame. No options, solid. Another frame that does not have the rockering axles, but is just solid, is the Endless Swan frame. And it's actually exactly the same frame in the dimensions as the FR frame. It just looks a little bit different, looks nice and clean. I'm not a big fan of all those holes in frames. I like it clean. But this is also 90 on the outside and 84 on the inside, solid. It's a really popular frame, selling really well from Endless. So again, high-low. And there'll probably be a lot more frames like this in the future coming out. I think if you're like a frame brand now and you're making frames, this is the way to go. The wait is only for when the skates come out with this, because that's what I'm missing still. Like, it's taking so long for good skates to come out with good frames. We've been stuck with 4x80 for so long, and 4x80 is so short, especially if you're new to skating. The biggest problem why people don't skate a lot, people who are not like good skaters, is because they feel unsafe. If we can do anything to help them, is to give them a playful mindset, to give them advice, give them inspiration. But hardware-wise, the best way to do that is give them a good stable hard boot, which is nice and solid. And frame-wise, the best way to do it is to give them a long wheelbase, so that with a long wheelbase you cannot fall anymore, because yeah, the axle is so much far to the back that it just holds you. It's kind of like a ski, you know, where the worst thing that you can do to give somebody an unstable skate where they're gonna fall really hard with is to give them like the 3x110 or the 3x125 with a really short wheelbase, and it's really high from the ground and it's really easy to fall on them. That's the opposite. We've been stuck with 4x80 for a long time, and I want to have like skates that come out with 4x100 with a rocker, or maybe frames like this with maybe 100 on the outside and 90 in the middle, or more like high-low frames. Come on, people. Until that time is there, maybe in 5 years the market will, like the standard boots that come out will finally come with those cool, nice high-low frames that we have here. But for now, the only way to do this is to build it yourself, make cool customs, and it's also fun. It's also fun to experiment, to play around with frames. You should see it kind of like as if you go like golfing. If you go golfing, you have this whole different, so like a bag with different clubs. And you have like 20 different clubs or something. I don't know, I don't golf. But at least you have all these options. And for each swing, you take a different club. And with skating, it's kind of the same in that for every trip, there's an ideal frame. And it's just fun to play with that. All right, the last frame that I want to show you is really special. And that's the Rockin frame. And it's called the Rockin Mix. There's 2 different editions. And it's just a Mix 4, which is what I already described. It's 90 in the middle and 100 on the outside. This is rockered, of course. So this is just a perfect frame. This is the frame probably that I would advise for most people. 90 in the middle, 100 on the outside. The next rocking frame is called the Mix 5. And the Mix 5 is different. You've never seen it before. Well, probably maybe if you know rocking, then you have. But not in this video. Because if you look at it, you see the axles go like that. Ding, ding, ding. All right. So only when there's a mounting spot here, you see the mounting spot, the axle that sits right above the mounting spot, that's a smaller wheel because there's no space to put a bigger wheel. But in the middle, actually, there is space. So you can put a bigger wheel in the middle. So it's 90 on the outside, 80 in the middle, and 90 in the real center. So it's 90, 80, 90, 80, 90. This is the only frame that I know at least that kind of like has this wavy pattern. And I think it's really smart. Again, if you can crank up a bigger wheel within the same ride height, you want to ride as low to the ground as possible, but within how low you are, take the biggest wheel. That's the advice, and that's what high-low is. Have fun playing with it. If you want to learn more about other frame setups, we have so many YouTube videos. So check them out, go through the history of the past couple of years of content, do a deep dive. If you want to have face-to-face conversations, we have 2 stores, one in Amsterdam and one in Berlin. So you can always come there for a nice chat about frame hardware, meet other skaters, because we do like city trips. If you like content like this, consider subscribing. I'll see you guys in the next video. See you then. Bye bye.